Hi everyone and welcome to the 34th episode of Japanese Phonetics by Dogen. Articulatory setting according to Mompean JA is the default position of a speaker's organs of articulation when ready to speak. In other words, what your lips, jaw, and tongue are doing when you're about to talk. Articulatory setting is based off of the individual sounds, primarily the more common sounds of the language in question. Thus, it's generally more effective to work backwards and study articulatory setting first, as it provides us with a nice phonetic springboard, so to speak. Incidentally, I found that working on articulatory setting also helps with developing a distinct Japanese mode mindset, which benefits both phonetics and grammar. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start looking at the individual elements of the Japanese articulatory setting. Lips. This is a big one. When it comes to lip positioning, there are generally two variables that need to be considered: lip rounding and lip spreading. These are both exactly what they sound like. Rounding refers to how much a speaker rounds and protrudes their lips forwards, while spreading refers to how much a speaker spreads their lips, both vertically and laterally. Okay, here we go. In Japanese, there is little to no lip rounding or spreading. Dr. Vance, citing Someda, further citing Hattori, goes as far as to say that in Japanese, the lips play almost no active role in pronunciation. They are neither round nor spread, but neutral. The best way to illustrate this idea is by comparing the English and Japanese vowels U and U. Let's start with the English word U. As you'll notice, when I say U, my lips become rounded and protrude forward significantly. U. U. However, if we look at the Japanese U or U, we can see that this doesn't occur despite U being the most rounded vowel in Japanese. U, 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 U. Compare back to back. U, 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 U. If you've never studied Japanese pronunciation in the context of phonetics, then a proper application of neutral lips will most likely improve your spoken Japanese immediately by a noticeable degree. If you're a native English speaker, notice your unconscious urge to round and protrude your lips in vowels like U, and practice actively resisting this urge by thinking about neutral lips. Incidentally, I found that practicing this in front of a mirror can help significantly. Let's look at a few more examples. Take the word ayumi. This is another one that English natives usually make a twofold mistake with. Not only do they use the wrong pitch accent pattern, but they also round and protrude their lips, resulting in ayumi. This is wrong. It's not ayumi, but ayumi. Not ayumi, but ayumi. Not ayumi, but ayumi. Not ayumi, but ayumi. Okay, closing thoughts on neutral lips. To clarify, this phenomenon applies to all sounds in Japanese. It's just easiest to introduce in the context of U, as this is the sound that's usually most affected. As Noguchi Junko points out in her 2014 paper, the English vowels I and E are very similar to the Japanese vowels I and E, but in the English variants, both English variants, the lips are spread wider in the vertical direction. So remember, neutral lips. Now I know that there are a few French and native Russian speakers watching, so I thought I'd also share the following quote from Dr. Vance's An Introduction to Japanese Phonology. Quote, Honikman compares this characteristic with French, in which she says there is much greater lip activity and frequent energetic rounding. In Russian, on the other hand, she says the lips are generally spread with only intermittent rounding. So here Dr. Vance is referencing Honikman, who essentially says that in French the lips are rounded even more than in English, and that in Russian the lips are generally spread more than in English. So if you're from either of these linguistic backgrounds, the idea of neutral lips is still valuable advice. Try to speak Japanese with neutral lips. I'll cut straight to it here, as the whole point of the series is to be practical. The literature on jaw placement is conflicting, so don't worry about this too much. To be specific, Dr. Vance believes that the lower jaw position in Japanese is distinctly more open than in American English and agrees with T. Someda on said topic. On the other hand, J. Noguchi believes that English speakers actually exhibit a lower jaw position than Japanese speakers. Personally, I tend to agree with Noguchi on this particular topic, as English has a much greater vowel range than Japanese, a point that Noguchi also makes, but take this opinion with a grain of salt, as it's purely anecdotal. Noguchi, referencing Orion, explains that native English speakers tend to keep their lower lip round and tight, covering their lower front teeth while lowering the jaw, which gives the sound more resonance. Summary for jaw placement in Japanese. The jury is out on this one, but I personally believe that the lower jaw should be in a higher, more closed position than in English, and that this helps slightly with developing a more Japanese-like voice. Great, now let's look at tongue placement. This one is relatively straightforward. Vance, citing Someda, says that the tongue is anchored centrally and lightly to the floor of the mouth. The position of the tongue as that for the low back vowel A As far as the tip of the tongue goes, Vance, citing Someda, again says that the tip of the tongue is not tapered and that it rests behind the lower front teeth. He then goes on to cite Someda's research on the high frequency of back vowels and velar consonants in Japanese, which might account for this tongue position. While I don't personally believe that perfecting tongue position has as noticeable of an impact on your spoken Japanese as neutral lips or devoicing, I do think that it helps with smoothly creating the individual sounds as well as developing phonetic awareness and, again, this distinct Japanese mode in your mind. That said, this isn't something that you need to overthink. We'll be covering more dynamic tongue movements, including the Japanese R sound in the future. Okay guys, that's all for this lesson. I hope that you found it useful. In the next episode, we'll begin to look at vowels. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you very much for the continued support, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.